Welcome to Buckeyes Tomorrow Morning for Thursday, October 20th. I'm your host, Tom Orr. The Iowa game is in 2 days, the game against Michigan in 37 days. That Iowa game will be a little bit of a recruiting weekend for the Buckeyes. That Michigan weekend will be a much bigger recruiting weekend for the Buckeyes. But yes, we are talking recruiting today. My guest is Marc Givler of BuckeyeHuddle.com. He just released a new edition of his Skull Session column. Has had some really interesting reporting. There's a bunch going on with Ohio State recruiting, some big decisions potentially coming soon. So we're going to talk about a bunch of those today. Marc, thanks for being here.
Thank you.
So let's start with two big five-star defensive linemen who could be making their decisions soon. These guys are both in the class of 2023, Keon Keeley, Damon Wilson. Which of those two guys do you think Ohio State has a better chance to land? And on a scale of 1 to 10, with 1 being, well, maybe if a bunch of stuff changes, maybe, and then 10 being, he's already secretly committed, how likely are they to land, whichever of those guys you think they're more likely to land?
Yeah, I think right now it looks like Damon Wilson's the most likely of the two. They're still battling for both of them, and I think they would love to have both of them. I've always kind of felt that was going to be a tough ask, given geography, who they're recruiting against, depth charts, things like that. It was going to be hard to get them both. But they're still moving forward with that idea in mind that they can try and get both. Right now, I like what I'm hearing more about Damon Wilson in Ohio State. I think the trust in Larry Johnson is very big, obviously, with both of these guys. But I think what's helping Ohio State the most right now with Damon is that they don't have a lot of guys like him. They have defensive ends, of course, but he is a pure speed rusher. He is like a Dwight Freeney type of guy, either 6'2", 6'3.5", or 6'2.5", 6'3" at the most. Maybe going to play at 255, maybe 260. He's not 6'5", he's not 6'6", he's not going to play at 275. He's just a pure speed rusher off the edge. They're looking for those guys now, especially as you see on Saturdays. You see Jack Sawyer and some of these guys standing up playing defensive end, coming off the edge there playing outside. So they're looking for guys like this, and it's an easy sell. It's an honest sell. You can go down the roster and you can show Damon Wilson, like, look, here's what we're doing on Saturday. Here's what we're trying to get out of that position. We don't have guys like you. And so that's a big thing right now, I think. And that's kind of one of those things of like, look, you can come in and play the first year. We don't have 3 or 4 guys lined up in your spot right now. So that's helping. Obviously, again, the Larry Johnson factor is big. They did a great job on the official a few weeks ago. And so I think, Georgia's making a really good push as well. I think that's definitely the biggest competition right now. But I would give Ohio State the edge right now for Damon Wilson. I hate that you've put me in this 1 to 10 thing because it's a sneaky way of making me do percentages. And that's really unfair. But I don't know, confidence 8 on Damon Wilson right now, probably. I think they're in really good shape, but I think it's probably only an 8 right now because we've kind of seen the back and forth with a lot of these defensive ends they're recruiting. Coming out of the official, we thought maybe Damon would commit to Ohio State coming out of the official. He basically told me he almost did when I talked to him recently. So that obviously didn't happen. Then he sets up the Georgia visit, and then people are kind of nervous about that. So there's always a little bit of wiggle room here with these guys, just given how they've been a little bit volatile with the back and forth going on. But I'll go Wilson at an 8. They're still in it for Keeley. Keeley's kind of a different situation. I don't think it's so much scheme and things like that, or so much selling him on what their vision is. More so is kind of working against what Alabama's selling. So, with Damon Wilson, Georgia and Ohio State, I think, have a very similar idea in mind for him, and it's just kind of a matter of comfort level and depth charts and geography and things like that. With Keon Keeley, it's kind of this tug of war of Ohio State's going to sell him on being Chase Young or Joey Bosa, and Alabama's going to sell him on Will Anderson, and your first inclination might be, well, those are both great pass rushers. What's the difference? Well, there's a big difference. Bosa and Young are hand in the dirt, all down defensive linemen, whereas Will Anderson is a bit more of kind of like a hybrid rover type. And so these are very different roles. And so that is the tug of war going on now with Keeley. So it's a little bit different than the game they're playing with Wilson. And much like with Wilson, you're going up against a powerhouse like Georgia. Now you're going up against a powerhouse like Alabama. I thought Ohio State was did very well to get him back on campus for that unofficial visit after the official, which I thought kind of might have even pushed them into a slight lead. Alabama gets him back on campus. I don't know. I think that one's very close right now, but I would probably say Alabama with a confidence of 4 or 5.
Yeah, so, I think there are 3 Big Ten defensive linemen that Ohio State is still chasing for that 23 class. There's Damon Wilson, Keon Keeley, and Mateo Uiagalelei. And, obviously none of these guys are 100% in or 100% out. So, you're kind of dealing with percentages and you kind of add up the, 80% here, 0.8 here and a 0.4 here or whatever. And you end up with, 1.7 or something like that, and obviously they cannot sign 1.7 guys. So of the 3 guys, this has sort of been like a running thing. We're just sort of doing sort of heat checks for Ohio State's defensive line recruiting throughout the fall. The last time I asked you this, and I think the last time I asked Alex this, you guys both said you're still leaning towards they get 2 of the 3. 3 is obviously possible. 1 or 0 is obviously possible. But where do things stand right now? How many do you think, as of right now, they get of those 3 guys?
Yeah, I still think they're going to get 2. I think they're going to split Wilson and Keeley, and I think they're going to get Mateo. Again, none of those are over to the point, especially with Mateo. While I may have the highest confidence in them getting Mateo, that one probably has the longest runway here. Wilson and Keeley, I think, will probably be off the board by Thanksgiving, if not sooner than that. I think Mateo will go all the way until at least that early December signing period, and who knows, that could even go into February. It would not shock me. So that one's got more runway. You still have USC and Oregon, especially, I think, are the 2 right now who are particularly threatening for Ohio State. Alabama's in there a little bit as well. You wonder if Alabama, not that they're recruiting them for the exact same position, but you do wonder, Alabama's got a lot of bodies they're trying to land right now. If they get someone like Keeley, does that maybe even just close the door with Mateo, even though they're not the exact same guy? They're recruiting a lot of linebackers and defensive linemen right now, and they're trying to get that sorted out. So they're not going to be able to take everybody. But I like where they're at with Mateo. It's just, is there going to be a late surge from the West Coast teams? That's going to happen there at the end. But so yeah, I like them to get Mateo. And right now, Wilson with Keeley to Alabama would be my best picks today, subject to change.
Yeah, I'm sure we will talk about these guys again before the hay is officially in the barn on that one. You mentioned those 2 guys could make their decisions by Thanksgiving. We just learned that one of Ohio State's top wide receiver targets is going to make his decision on Thanksgiving. That is wide receiver Tyseer Denmark out of Philadelphia. He's someone that we saw at one of those Ohio State camps over the summer. That was the 7-on-7 camp. And he was very impressive, really kind of jumped out among all the different teams. He really kind of stood out. He did announce that he's going to be making a decision on November 24th. Ohio State has sort of been viewed as a leader to land him for a while now, assuming they were going to take him. He seemed like they was sort of where he was leaning. And then now he's announced that his decision is coming, and he's also scheduled to go see the whiteout game at Penn State this weekend. So is that something that Ohio State fans should be concerned about?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's something to pay attention to. I think certainly if you're looking at Tyseer Denmark, I think Ohio State, Penn State are probably the 2 most likely right now. And I know everyone's saying to themselves right now, well, he set an announcement date, so he knows where he's going. And I'm sure he probably has an idea where he's leaning right now. But when you set something out, 5, 6, 7 weeks in advance, it's not that hard to say, hey, I'm deciding between 2 or 3. I'm giving myself this deadline. Let me spend the next month or 2 figuring out which of those schools it's going to be. So I think he's going to still wrestle with that a little bit here the next month or 2. But I still like where Ohio State's at, and I think it'll be one of those 2. But I still like where Ohio State's at. The one thing that's interesting to me, and we talked about this with Caden McDonald, but it was kind of a reverse situation where Caden McDonald was talking about announcing on October 31st, and he still is, but was also at the same time had mentioned going to Clemson for the South Carolina game at the end of November. Well, if he's going to that, wouldn't he be committing to Clemson if he's announcing in October? Well, we've kind of been expecting Tyseer Denmark to visit Ohio State for the Michigan game, which would be 2 days after his commitment. So I think while you may want to watch the Penn State visit that gets set up right after he announces his announcement date, you may want to kind of remember that as well. So that he has talked about visiting Ohio State for the Michigan game in the past. So that'll be something we dive into here the next couple of weeks. But I still think Ohio State's in a good spot and can win that for sure.
Well, you've been diving into a bunch of stuff this week on the Huddle board at BuckeyeHuddle.com that is members only, so you should sign up to get all of Marc's insights on all these guys. He wrote about some of the stuff we've already talked about. He also did a reader and member mailbag, answered a bunch of questions about a ton of different topics, some really interesting stuff in there. We're just going to hit on a couple of them, but you got to sign up to get on the Huddle board to be able to read the rest of it. But in that mailbag column, one of the questions you answered there was about Ohio State's recruiting in the state of Georgia. And, it seems a little bit ambitious with, the in-state Georgia Bulldogs being the defending national champions right in the thick of the national championship race again this year. So the question was basically, can the Buckeyes really honestly pull talent out of there right now? Or are they just kind of wasting their time and chasing guys who they have no real chance at down there?
No, I mean, you have to, if you're going to recruit Atlanta, you have to really, especially, like I said, we're talking about Georgia, but specifically, we are talking about the greater Atlanta area. And when you recruit that area, you can't just kind of dip a toe in. You have to really commit to it. And Ohio State's been doing that for a long time. Urban Meyer really, I think, started it. I know people are going to mention Bradley Roby, but under Tressel, Ohio State was not throwing its hat in the ring for the top 10 players in the Atlanta area. They just weren't. That really started under Urban Meyer. And then, Ryan Day's been a big part of that. Ryan Day recruited, I don't think maybe people don't realize this. Ryan Day was one of his primary territories was Atlanta when he was an assistant under Urban Meyer. So he was big with Steel Chambers and Harry Miller and guys like that. So Ryan Day's been recruiting the Atlanta area for several years now. So you have to really invest in it, and you have to go into it knowing if we offer a dozen kids in Atlanta, we're not going to get 6 of them. We're offering a dozen to get 2 or 3. And that's just how you kind of have to look at it. But Atlanta it's a transplant city. There are a lot of mixed loyalties. Yes, if you took a poll, the top team would be Georgia. There's a lot of Alabama fans in Atlanta. There's a lot of Auburn. Auburn is not far from Atlanta. There's a lot of Auburn fans, a lot of Tennessee fans there. You're not that far from Knoxville. So there's Clemson fans there. So it's very much, and there's people that move there from all over the country. So it's not this it's not like recruiting Columbus, Ohio. If you're Alabama, it's not like you're coming in and trying to recruit Columbus, Ohio and beat Ohio State. It's not that. You're fighting 6, 7, 8 different schools. So it's a territory where if you show that you put the time and effort in, you can see results. And Ohio State has seen results over the years. They had a couple of lean years in Georgia when Kirby Smart kind of got things rolling, but they've bounced back lately the last couple of years. And I think they're set up to get a couple guys in 24. I look at, kind of what they're doing down there. And I look at specifically, I look at what they're doing at Buford with King Joseph Edwards, one of the best defensive ends in the country. And then you've also got KJ Bolden, who is maybe one of the top 10 players in the country, is kind of a safety athlete, has some ties to the Ohio State staff. He's got, he's been up here a couple times already, as has Edwards. So I'm looking at what they're doing early, and these are big name guys. If they can get 1 or 2 of those guys, that may springboard you into getting 1 or 2 more guys who kind of follow them. So I'd always recruit Atlanta. I mean, the cliff notes on what we just talked about, I would always recruit Atlanta hard. I think the benefits are too much to ignore.
All right, and so I guess Marc Pantoni knows what he's doing. All right, I guess we'll write that down. I'm not sure that qualifies as news, but we will mark that down. Mark one down for Marc Pantoni. All right, so and then the next thing I did want to talk to you about was you got an early look at some of the top players for the state of Ohio in the 2024 class coming soon. So they can't pull the whole class out of Atlanta. So closer to home, again, people can sign up today at BuckeyeHuddle.com to get access to all of the good stuff there. You gave away, we're not going to give it all away for free here, but can you give people maybe 2 or 3 names to watch for 2024 who don't have Ohio State offers yet, in-state guys, but who could end up in the class before all is said and done on signing day in 2024?
Yeah, I think one guy, and I didn't even mention him on the board. I probably should have. I was trying not to write a novel to answer every question. I kind of left him out. I'll throw him out there now. Is I think you look at someone like Brian Robinson. He's a 6'3", 6'4", 230-pound outside linebacker, pass rusher. I look at him. He didn't really have much in the way of sophomore tape, so he's just now getting varsity tape out there. They've looked at him at camp. He still has a lot of developing to do, but he's a talented athlete. And as we talked about with Damon Wilson, they don't have a lot of those guys. So I think Brian's in a position where maybe he's a unique skill set that they're looking for and has a chance to maybe earn an offer. So that's one guy I would look at. He's out of Austintown Fitch, Youngstown area. Another guy I know that they really like is Gavin Grover. He's a tight end out of Columbus area. He's out of Olentangy High School, Lewis Center, Ohio. I believe he camped as well. He's visited this fall. That's a guy I know they really like. He kind of fits what they do at tight end. He's a big 6'5", 6'6" kid, big frame kid, kind of an all downs tight end, can block. So I think that's a guy to maybe keep an eye on, especially as I hate to say this already because we say this every year. It never actually happens, but especially as we look at 2024 as possibly being a 2 tight end class, that would make some sense there to take someone like Gavin Grover and then chase nationally. So those are 2. And then, one interesting area, and I don't have any intel that anything's imminent here. In fact, my information is more so that nothing is imminent here. But there are like 4 or 5 offensive linemen in Ohio in 2024 that are all pretty good. So you've got Luke Hamilton from Avon, and then you've got 3 guys from Lakewood St. Edward. Must be nice. Ben Roebuck. And then you have Devontae and Deontay Armstrong, 2 tackle bodies. Those are 4 of, roughly the top 15 prospects in Ohio for the 2024 class. It just feels like one of them's got to get an offer. It feels like you're not going to let all 4 of them go somewhere else. So I kind of just feel like, and it may not settle itself until certainly after this season, but maybe not even until like June camps next year. But I have to imagine one of those 4, if not 2, end up impressing the staff enough to getting an Ohio State offer. So I think those are kind of some of the guys to watch.
Yeah, and I think we saw all 4 of those guys. I know we saw at least 3 of those guys, maybe all 4 of those guys at camp over the summer.
They were all at camp.
Yeah. Yep. So that's that is a great place to get to watch these guys, and they get some real hands-on instruction with Justin Fry, and they can do some real in-person, in-depth evaluation. So yeah, those are 2024 guys. So we've got a little time to for everything to get sorted out there. But yeah, definitely some good names to watch beyond the big ones that we tend to talk about a lot on these shows.
It's a good running back class. There's 3 or 4 Samuel Dixon. There's a few guys now. They've offered Jordan Marshall, so you have to assume at this point if they get Jordan Marshall, that's probably it for Ohio running backs, even if it is a 2-back class. But who knows? I mean, we've seen them offer, and I personally love Jordan Marshall, so I would just take Jordan Marshall and prioritize him if it were me. But we've also seen them in the past offer an Ohio running back early, but either not get him or not end up taking him and end up going a different direction. And so if they decide like, wow, we really just like the Samuel Dixon kid, or we really like this kid, they may do that. I mean, it's a good running back class too.
Yeah, a lot of good names to know. You can find all those names and Marc's analysis on a bunch of those guys on the Huddle board at BuckeyeHuddle.com. He does weekly reporting on his Skull Session column, and then a bunch of other posts and answers your questions. Alex Gleitman does his Skull Session column. He's cranked out a couple of those already this week, so with some really good recruiting intel in those. And of course, Tony and Kevin and I covering the team. You've got Ross and Justin and Devin on the X's and O's pieces of things. Really, really good coverage from all different angles of what is shaping up to be a very interesting and very exciting Ohio State football season and Ohio State recruiting season as well. So make sure you sign up today at BuckeyeHuddle.com to get access to all of that great stuff. And we're getting to the point where you sign up, try it for a month, see if you like it, and there's going to be plenty to talk about over the next month between the this year's team and the recruiting classes and all that kind of stuff. So give it a shot. Try it today, BuckeyeHuddle.com. That'll do it for today. Thank you guys all for joining us. Have a great day. We'll talk to you tomorrow.